Hi folks, Modelling Mark here again. In this video I'm completing the spindle. And if you didn't see the previous video, there should be a link to it in the top right hand corner, so you can go back and see how I started the spindle. If you didn't watch that video, it's probably worth watching that one first. That'll give you a bit more context as to what I'm doing in this one. I'm all set up for thread cutting now. I've got the top slide over at 60 degrees, well 30 degrees depending on which way you look at it. I've got my tool set square and I've done the scratch pass to make sure that I've got the threading set up correctly. It looks like I have. As before, I shall go in with the top slide. I'm going to show you a couple of passes. Then I'm going to move the camera out the way and finish off and measure the threads while I'm at it, and then I'll show you the final thread, mainly because the camera's in the way. I'm going to switch the camera off, move it out the way so I can see what I'm doing. I'll bring you back when I've finished. That's the thread finished now. Getting 3 wires in place and measuring with only 2 hands is virtually impossible. Anyway, I used a rubber band to hold the top 2 wires in place. They're actually spread over about 3 threads, not adjacent threads, just to give the micrometer anvil a little bit of a wider surface to land on. The bottom wire has got a bit of tape on it, mainly so I don't lose it. I was measuring at 5.17, 5.18, which is the upper limit for the thread, so I'm happy with that. I don't want to push it any further. When I come to make the nut, I'll make the nut to fit this thread. I came across this website, Theoretical Machinist, which has got a very useful imperial screw thread calculator. Brilliant for calculating non-standard thread sizes. So you bung in your major diameter and your pitch, UNS because it's a Unified National Special thread, and 2A because it's an external thread. And it comes up with your major diameter, your pitch diameter, your minor diameter, and most usefully, put in the diameter of your wires, and it gives you the diameter over the wires. So that's where I'm getting the 0.517518 from. Very useful website. I shall put a link in the description. I will ignore my scribbles. The next job is to skim down the threads and to skim up to the edge of where the bearing journal comes from. Now the reason I'm going to have to skim the spindle right up to the bearing journal, because the pulley butts up against the inner of the ball bearing. Of course, when I relieved this so I didn't have to tap the bearing down, I didn't go all the way up to the edge of the bearing. I came about 3 or 4 millimeters this way because I didn't want to measure right up to the bearing journal. I didn't really want to machine right up to the bearing journal. However, I didn't realise at the time that that diameter is actually important. That one's not. That's just got the distance piece in. But this one is, because the pulley obviously needs to run true and it needs to sit up hard against the bearing. So I shall skim the thread and this diameter down up to the bearing journal, and then I'll make a note on the drawing, so when I make the pulley, then I'll make the pulley to fit this. That was almost a bit of a cock-up. It wouldn't have been insurmountable because I could have just relieved the inside of the pulley down here, But anyway, I'm glad I spotted my potential cock-up. I've got a DRO on the x-axis of the lathe, so I shall zero it against this face. I shall come back this distance, which is 68.3 millimeters plus 14 millimeters for the bearings, and machine that bit down. The tool is set, so this is the required 82.3, or actually about 82.5. The allowance, I haven't gone quite up there. I'm allowing for a little chamfer on the end of the pulley. And tool is set, so it's just starting to cut on the bearing journal. Take it in just one thou, put it on the slowest feed, squirty. That looks like it's taken a nice tiny clean-up cut over the whole diameter, or over the whole circumference. It's a nice surface finish, certainly good enough for a pulley to slide onto. You've got a diameter of 12.93, which is 5.09 thou. That'll do. That'll go on the drawing. Doesn't really matter what the diameter is as long as I know what it is, and then I can make the pulley to match. The pulley bore is obviously not going to get reamed because that's a random size hole, but again, a boring bar into aluminium will give a perfectly good finish. So the next task is to go in from this end to drill a 7.8 millimeter hole, hopefully to go just over halfway. Then when I turn it round I can drill the hole from the other end. I had intended to do the hole purely from one end, but then I saw how much an extra long series 7.8 millimeter drill was. So I've decided to go in from two ends. As it was, I bought some cobalt drills, which should be a bit tougher and better suited to drilling this high tensile steel. I believe this is EN8, but I'm not 100% sure. For drilling the hole, the drill's going to be in a ER25 collet chuck, which goes in the tailstock. That should hold the drills more central and with a stronger grip, hopefully better for drilling this. And of course I'll put a fixed steady on. Got the fixed steady in place now. Got the ER25 collet chuck in the tailstock and a 5mm cobalt drill. Lathe on low speed, squirted cutting fluid, and let's see how we go. Touch wood, this seems to be going pleasingly undramatically. I think this is a testament to buying good quality drills. That's the 5mm pilot hole drilled. Now we're going in with the 7.8mm hole, which is the size before reaming. That's the 7.8mm hole half the way through. Quick deburr. And that should be done for this setup. I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried about drilling that hole, but decent quality drills, holding the drill in a collet in the tailstock and keeping constant pressure on the drill so it doesn't rub. As I understand, EN8 can work harden. It's a hardenable steel. So they say keep constant pressure on it, because if it rubs it gets hot and then it work hardens and it makes it even tougher to drill. But that went remarkably well. Annoyingly, that's as far as the spindle will go into my collet chuck before it hits the drawbar. So I'm going to have to get out the fixed steady again. I'll put the clock on it just to make sure, and it's running to pretty close. The needle is moving a little bit, but not very much. I've got 3 operations to do here. I've got to turn down this diameter so it's the right diameter to accept the sleeve. I've got to face this off so this is the right length, and then I've got to finish drilling the hole which goes down and hopefully will meet up with the hole that's come halfway, and then I've got to go all the way through with the reamer. I'll start by taking the diameter down to 0.815. This is going to be another protracted machining operation, so I'll turn the camera off and bring you back when I'm finished. That's down to size now. And there we've got 0.8143. I was aiming for 0.815. I can live with that. Now I need to face this face until this is 3/16. And there's about 100 thou to come off there, which is going to take a long time. So I shall switch off the camera and come back when I've finished. This should be down to size now. We're aiming for 1875 and I got 188. Again, more than good enough for this dimension. Now in this setup I've also had to move the tailstock so it's inside of the saddle, because there's not enough throw on the tailstock to reach over the saddle, and there's not enough space under here for the saddle. That was a little bit of an inconvenience, but never mind. Now we need to finish off this hole. I'll start with the centre drill, of course. I don't know if you noticed, but the 5mm drill was wobbling noticeably, which suggests the hole had gone off centre somehow. So rather than push on, I decided that I'd stick the 7.8mm drill in, with just a little bit sticking out the collet chuck, and I've gone in with that and re-drilled the hole, and hopefully that has left me with a better centre. This seems to be drilling fine actually without a pilot hole, so I'm going to carry on with this. I shall drill down that far, then I'll pull the drill out a little bit further and carry on drilling with the minimum stick out, and hopefully by the time the drill has got long enough to wander a little bit, there'll be enough material supporting it, and fingers crossed the hole goes straight. I shall bring you back when I've done, because the camera is getting in the way and I need to see what I'm doing. That's the hole finished. It drilled no great problem. The 7.8mm drill doesn't quite go through, so the holes aren't perfectly aligned, but a dead size drill, which is about 10 thou smaller, does go down very easily. And if I put it down on the slant, there's a barely perceptible step about halfway down. So I got away with that one. Now it's time to finish off the hole with the long series reamer. Now we go in with my very, very long series reamer. Unnecessarily long, but it was cheap on eBay. And I couldn't find one that was sort of the right length. Now because we've got a 5-inch hole to do, and only 1 1/4 inch travel on the quill, I'm going to have to push it in and take it in several steps. And that is it. Quick deburr, and hopefully the drawbar material will slide all the way through. And that is perfect. Couldn't be happier with that. There we have the almost completed spindle. I've got a keyway slot to put in this end, and there's a collar to go on this end. The slot for the keyway needs to go here. Needs to be 3/32 wide and 3/8 long. If you go in with the 3/32 slot mill and just mill it out, you end up with a really rubbish finish. So what I've got is a 2mm slot drill. And I'm going to plunge that in about 5 thou at a time and go along 0.3 of an inch, which will give me the 3/8 distance end to end. And when I've gone down by the necessary 47 thou, then I will go backwards and forwards by 7 thou to clean up the edges and widen it a bit. And doing it that way, you get a much nicer finish. So the DRO is already set up on the centre of the bar, and I've come in by the correct amount. And it's all a little bit tight down here because I've got the end mill sticking out the bare minimum so that the two nuts clear each other at the bottom of the cut. In fact, you'll be able to see better on camera than I can looking at it. So I shall just go down until the cutter starts to cut, zero the Z-axis, and then carry on. Now for the last couple of cuts, just finishing cuts, I'm going to put in a little bit of lubricant there. Didn't seem to need it for the earlier cuts, but hopefully it'll just give that little bit better surface finish. To be honest, I can't really see what's going on in there. Yeah, that looks quite respectable. Now, does the key fit? That has hopefully taken out another thou or two. And perfect. That's going in quite easily, but no wobble there. That keyway has come out very nicely indeed. Here's a finished spindle. Very pleased with that. Threads came out nice and the key slot came out very nicely. Off camera I made this ring. I didn't video this because this is just a very straightforward turning job. And that'll fit on there. And there we've got the nice deep slot. That'll be Loctited on, but I'm not going to fix it on until I do the final assembly of the bearing. That's it, another piece off the list. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, leave them below. I read them all and I answer nearly all of them. Thank you. See you soon.